And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, we're on. Well, interesting guy with us today, and I really, you know, Mark, I really like your work. You're creative on stage.
Well, thanks for inviting me on the show. First of all, I try to bring a little different spin from the mainstream comedy you might see from other folks. It's I'm fortunate because a lot of it has to do with my ethnic background, so I have a little different angle than a lot of comics have. And I started comedy a little later in life. I was in my 30s, so hopefully I got rid of some of the chaff and about more of the wheat.
Before we go any further, let's just take a quick listen to some of your work.
All right.
I got verbally assaulted in the parking lot by some white supremacist guy. He got in my face. He goes, hey, you minorities, you all need to go back to your own country. I'm like, sir, I'm Native American. I'm in my own country. So people always ask, they find out your name. Oh, how do you like to be addressed? You prefer Native American or First Nations, American Indian? I'm like, I kind of like original landowner. Do we have any other original landowners here tonight? Anyone else ready to party like it's 1491? Okay, the rest of you are getting very sleepy, very sleepy. After the show, you will give back all of the land. And you will stop casting Lou Diamond Phillips as an Indian in your cowboy movies.
See, dude, you're really good on stage. You're comfortable, and I like the fact that you're not afraid to make fun of yourself, your heritage. Was that always in your comedy when you started?
Yeah, I think right out of the gate, you know, because I figured if I'm going to make fun of other people, which I don't really, I'm not, you can tell by my material, I'm not an attack comic, but I figure, you know, if you can poke fun at yourself, it really loosens a crowd up, and it makes them really more open to let me take shots at some other things. But, you know, I tend to be more an institutional comedian going after, you know, sacred cows or just situations versus picking on individuals. I'm not above it, especially if it's a heckler, but, you know, that's my feeling is, hey, if we can all laugh and find the commonalities, and, you know, let's all leave happy.
Yeah, you know, I think there's some truth to that, and I don't know. I'll get your thought on this for aspiring comedians out there and people maybe thinking about doing this for a living. Like when I was growing up, I don't know, maybe you're too young to remember this, but I used to look so forward to Don Rickles being on The Tonight Show. And when he would come on that show, it was such a big deal to me when he would come on Johnny Carson. And they'd play that Matador music, and he'd come out, and it was just open season for anyone out there. And I got to tell you, I look back and I think making fun of ourselves, who we are, whether you're Polish, German, you're an Eskimo, whatever it might be, I think that opens the gate to actually helping all of us instead of just pretending it doesn't exist. What's your thoughts as a comedian, as a performer?
I agree. Unfortunately, some in the media and the audience sector disagree. And, you know, I haven't really had any problems. You get these guys now, they do some colleges, and the next thing you know, they got a protest going, and they're stopping the show for these comments that seem pretty innocuous. So, you know, I'm a big believer in you know, the First Amendment, and we, you know, if we have some freedom of speech, that's going to make, like you said, make fun of each other. Don Rickles, he had a little bit different attitude and little leeway back in those days. Like, you know, you look at the roasts now that they do, and you have Foster Brooks making fun of drunk people. I don't think you can do that now. You had you know, Dean Martin with the drink and just slurring their words. I think now people say, well, you know, Mothers Against Drunk Driving and DUI, and in some regards you understand we've evolved a little bit, but at the end of the day, you go back, that stuff, like, I agree with you, it was classic stuff. And I think comedy being cyclical, I think it'll come back eventually. I think, you know, we're in a little tough time now at the country, and everyone's has a lot of the sensitivities are up. I say we're the most powerful country on the planet and the whiniest nation on the planet at the same time.
You're right. I think you're right on that. It's interesting. You're right. If you go back and look at that material, yeah, it's almost now like we do feel uncomfortable with some of that material. So yeah, we've evolved, but then I also think, are we evolving in a way with comedy that we're, frightened to say anything? I mean, is it getting to the point that you're going to have to craft your comedy act to where, ooh, I don't want to offend him, I don't want to offend her, I better not do that one here in Oklahoma,
I think the comedians are going to have to decide, to say, I'm not going to do these venues, and there's certain areas that are no-go zones because people are just too sensitive. There's a situation in Canada where there was, I believe it was 2 years ago, there was a Canadian Human Rights Commission. They fined this comedian like $15,000. He had this run-in with an audience member. I don't think we'll get to that point, but, people, the good thing is when they come to see comedy, 99% of people know, hey, we're just here to have fun. It's when you get someone that gets a little strident or maybe had a little too much to drink, and things can kind of unravel. But I've been fortunate. My style of comedy is just to keep moving. I don't engage audience a lot. I try to keep my jokes just crisp and tight. So really, if someone wants to jump in, they come and complain after the show, not in the middle when everyone else that paid money wants to just hear me.
So take me a little bit to your background, where you grew up, and then how you eventually got to this point. Take us back a little bit.
Well, I was born in East Los Angeles, California. Had a teen mother. She was 17 at the time and put me up for adoption. And I was fortunate to have a great couple. My parents, Bud and Lucy, are still with us today, 92 and 90. Yeah.
Nice.
Combined 182 years old. They adopted me. I have one adopted sister. Grew up in San Fernando Valley, which is a section of LA, and went to 12 years of Catholic school, same place. Had a pretty stable childhood. It was a bit I would say bipolar is probably not the word, but I got on my mom's side. I had like 6 other aunts and uncles, and my dad's side he had just one sister and 2 cousins. So on one side you'd go over, there'd be like 50 people. The other place you'd go over, it'd be just like 5 of us. So it was, you'd get the Mexican Catholic culture with my dad's side and the Jewish culture, and it was always something that I just assumed was normal. But I grew up, you think, wow, there weren't many people getting that experience. And then when I was 25, graduated college, went to work for the state of California. I got a FedEx envelope from my birth mother. I was standing right in the middle of a DMV office, doing work, and I got this big envelope, and she had this 9-page handwritten letter explaining how she put me up for adoption, and she wanted to wait till I was old enough she wouldn't disrupt my life. And then I found out, a bit about my background, having a father who's Navajo and Mexican, and my mom being European, and this whole world kind of unfolded because all those years growing up, I never knew my ethnic background, which, in America, as much as we are Americans and we want to be Americans first, everyone kind of has that, especially back in the 60s and 70s. Oh, what's your background? Yeah. What's your story? Because, it's an immigrant story, and by and large, and I found out, well, hey, my story isn't all the immigrant story. It's, folks were here for a few thousand years before anyone else showed up.
Hang on, the guy in the booth is yelling at me. Is there something you're doing with your camera, shaking a little bit, or?
Did it move?
Yeah. Sorry. Well, you're just moving, or you're hitting your hand. Yeah.
Oh, I had to charge I had to put the plug in the laptop, so I think that jostled us.
Okay, it's just shaking as you're talking, is what they're telling me. Anyways, so
what? Not having a West Coast earthquake. That's just me.
So then, what is your heritage? Half what? Half what?
Mexican, Scots-Irish, a little bit of German, okay, and Navajo.
Okay, all right. So then, how did you get into comedy?
Well, that was a long road. Like I said, I was in my late 30s when I started comedy. I was working as a DMV driving examiner. I used to give the tests for new drivers. My buddy talked me into starting a school because all the public schools in California were dropping drivers training. So I said, oh, yeah, I'll go open a driving school, and all those kids that can't go through the high school will come see me. So my buddy talked me into it. I started teaching classes for teenagers. Then in California, if you got a ticket, you could take a traffic school class to get it erased from your record. So I started doing those, and people found me real funny, and I started thinking, well, I should have comedy traffic school, and went looking for comedians to teach. Ended up finding a guy that was teaching a comedy class. So I said, I might as well go take the class and just kind of see if it would help me when I was standing up doing classes in front of people. And the next thing I know, the guy liked me and wanted to take me out on the road. Well, I think I just had a car that ran, and I was responsible. So he said, hey, let's you want to go with me and tour, quote unquote. I was up in Oregon and Washington, just started doing little bars and gigs like that, and it just kind of mushroomed.
And so now what is your life like? Are you touring constantly then?
More or less, I'd say probably 40 weeks a year.
Wow.
You know, I have a mix because my career is kind of not the traditional career path. I didn't live in New York or move to LA. I mean, I left LA, moved to the middle of nowhere. I was living up in Northern California in pretty basic in the woods past north of Napa Valley. So when I started comedy, I would be driving 2-3 hours just to go to gigs, turn around, drive back. Sometimes it would be an open mic. I would get bumped, or they wouldn't have enough people and would cancel. So, it was a slow build. I started getting some tribal casino work, and then been just building, slowly but surely, and trying to keep the wheels turning. And then I've been doing cruise ships also for about 1.5 years. That's been nice. And don't have to fly around to airports every day or every week, and get a couple weeks on the ship. And it's a great chance to write and meet some folks and eat too much food.
So now, as a comedian, do you find there's enough work for you now? Is it enough to keep you busy throughout the whole year?
Well, it is. You have to hustle a lot more. They went from the comedy boom of the 80s before I started, where they were hiring the openers. They were flying them out to work 2 or 3 weeks at a time. Now you're a headliner. You're lucky if they give you travel, and you have to. It's like any market. It's way oversaturated. So I've been fortunate that I have a decent enough reputation that people know my work, and I get some calls. But I still have to go out there and hustle, and I'll do some mailers, and sometimes, and pick up the phone. I've had agents and managers. I have a cruise ship agent, but at the end of the day, you're your own best hype man.
For people just joining us, let's take another look and listen to your work.
I'm a little worried about my dad, though. My dad, he's exhibiting some gang member behaviors. Yeah. He just keeps driving slower and slower. His pants just keep getting lower and lower. Forget toys for tots. We need straps for paps. Still driving at 91. Yeah, his first accident last year after like 73 years of driving. Check this out. He had a patch of ice while driving in Palm Springs, California. He had a patch of ice while driving in the Mojave Desert. I'm like, Dad, how did you manage to do that? Did you run over a jaywalker holding an icy? To be honest, I can't believe he didn't crash sooner. Like every other 91-year-old man, he can't see anything because he has eyebrows like a woolly mammoth. Have you seen the old guys with the lobster brows going on there? He looks like he gave birth to a pair of Brillo pads. It's like, Mom, don't kiss him. You'll put an eye out. And ear hair like chia pet. Yeah. That's why those 90-year-old guys don't turn their head when they change lanes. They can't see through that shrubbery.
So what would you say to someone out there that is going to go into comedy? Run for your life, don't do it? Or what's your thought process?
Who am I to discourage anyone's dream? But the thought process is, hey, you're going into a super impacted business. My theory is anyone that wants to be in front of an audience who doesn't play a musical instrument goes into comedy. So, be prepared for a slow build. Try to get as much stage time as you can, whether it's little bars and open mics or whatever. Create some social media. And it's changed. When I started in the late 90s, it was all about mailing out packets, and I was sending out VHS tapes.
I remember.
And now it's just like, hey, people create a YouTube channel, they create a Vimeo account. If you have some good content you can share online, a lot of people are bypassing leapfrogging other comedians and say, hey, I got 50,000 Twitter followers. I got a great Instagram account. Share the funny stuff that makes you laugh, and hopefully people respond, and grow your social media at the same time you grow your comedy. You don't want one to outpace the other, because we see that now. There's guys that show up in a club and they've got 2 million followers on YouTube or Twitter, and they have a 20-minute act. They can't hold the audience, and everyone suffers at the end of the day. People are like, well, we're not coming back and watching comedy again. So
for people watching who do want to go into comedy, what's the process you go through in putting, your routine together, if you will? Walk us through that.
Well, it varies for everyone, but the basic is you're going to start out, you're going to get maybe 3 to 5 minutes if you get on a showcase night at a club or an open mic. So really thinking about what can I do that will grab people's attention, 3 to 5 minutes, super tight, well written, memorable, because there's a lot of good comedy out there. What's going to make you stand apart from other people? Were you a pilot on an aircraft carrier? Were you a submarine sailor? Were you did you serve time in prison? I don't know, whatever sets you apart. You want to make sure you bring that out and try to play to your strengths and have a little bit of a distinct voice.
That's interesting what you said, that if you can't play an instrument, you end up in comedy. Does that mean most comedians probably wanted to be a rock star or something?
That's always the old joke that all rock stars want to be comedians. Comedians want to be rock stars. A few have crossed over. You can look at a guy like Dane Cook. He was kind of a rock star of comedy, and he's still going out there. Bill Burr. Now you have comedians. Phil Madison Square Garden. You didn't have that 20 years ago.
True.
Maybe Eddie Murphy, and maybe a little bit of Dice Clay, but I think now we're the new affordable product. A producer's probably in an entertainment company saying, hey, we can send one guy and a couple openers around on a tour, or we can have to get roadies and a band together and a light show. So, we're a good inexpensive product, evidently.
So who are the gals and guys that, I don't know, you grew up listening to, watching, and then who do you today sort of really admire?
Well, I really, when I was a little kid, I really liked Flip Wilson. I liked those roasts they used to do, the Dean Martin roast. I always got a kick out of those. I was a big fan of sitcoms, All in the Family, Sanford and Son. So I always had that writing mentality in my brain, and I think as a kid I kind of broke down comedy and had a pretty good ear for it. As far as old school comics, I really wanted to be. I think as a kid I thought, wow, if I did comedy, I'd want to be an impressionist, because I thought Rich Little was amazing, and in fact I worked in Vegas. He still opens. He still has a show 6 nights a week at the Laugh Factory inside the Tropicana. 80's still going strong.
Yeah, when I was living in Vegas, I got to know Rich a little bit, and he's still a hard worker. He's still cranking it out.
And the other thing is he still picks up on the current. He still does the old school voices, but he has he keeps up to date. I don't remember if he did a Trump last time I saw him, because it's been a year or two. But I think he has a Trump, and that's not there's some voices that are super hard.
Yeah.
And I think he's really mastered. And at that age to have that work ethic, I think it's a great thing. That's another great thing about comedy. Not too many 80-year-old rock stars, but there's still 80-year-old comedians. Don Rickles went to, I think, 90, 91.
Yeah. So going back to your process then, so do you write things down? Do you go into a recorder? Do you go in front of a video camera and then test it out in a club? I mean, how do you sort of piece that whole act together so it makes sense and it flows and it works?
Well, a lot of it'll be situational stuff. I just observe and say, like, what's going on here? This is kind of crazy, and how would I approach it? Maybe what are some spins I can put on a topic like this? I'll see something in the news or a family situation. My daughter, she married this young man from Saudi Arabia, so I started writing some material about her being married to him, and now at TSA I went from preferred flyer to person of interest. I would never have thought of that joke if I didn't have a son-in-law from the Middle East. So there's things like that kind of fall in your lap. I do have a practice of trying to write 3 pages every day, just whether it's gibberish or Sometimes it just thoughts of life. Sometimes it'll just spin off into comedy. So it's really putting the pen to the paper. I think that's a good practice. And I do have my phone with me all the time. So if I think of an idea, I want to be right there to think of it before it disappears into the ether.
But how do you know it's funny? I mean, you can say that to yourself, but how, I mean, then do you test it? Do you go somewhere and go, well, I'll throw that one in? Or
yeah, a lot of times I'll try to flesh out what makes it a joke. You know, and I'd like to think I have some jokes are like they'll be more geared or one-liner. I'll put them on. Sometimes I'll throw them up on Facebook just to see a response, or I'll run them by my girlfriend or a friend or my daughter. I have a couple people I trust, and then sometimes I'll just put it out my act and say, hey, let's get this out there and see what happens. And sometimes right away it's a hit. Sometimes it's like mediocre response, but I see the gold in it. And then if I do it 3 or 4 times and it's not working, sorry, it's got to go. I mean, there's some things that I think that I really find funny myself that necessarily the public doesn't bite on.
Talk a little bit about what it's like being on stage. I really believe if you want to be a rock star or a comedian, if you can get over that fear of, wow, everyone's staring at me, everyone's watching me, everyone's analyzing me. I feel like if you can get past that, then I feel like it's an easier road. What's it like standing on stage, first of all, and then what's it like standing on stage and you're kind of dying? It isn't going as good as planned.
Well, that's it. I look at it like a baseball picture. You can be a Cy Young 20-game winner, and you're throwing a no-hitter one game, and the next game nothing's going over the plate. They're knocking everything out of the park. So the thing is, you have to really hang in there. If you show panic or fear, I just keep moving forward, and I'll try to change the energy up a little bit. But sometimes I'll slow the set down if people aren't really biting on it. I'll talk to them a little bit, going to the audience. Each audience is its own dynamic. But they don't vary too far, fortunately. I don't want to say my act is bulletproof because I never take anything for granted. Trust me, I've bombed many times, but the bombs, fortunately, are fewer and far between. And sometimes it'll be just lulls, and you'll lose them on a joke, and they might disappear, like as an audience for, sometimes 2 or 3 minutes, and then something will pop them right back. It's almost like you're like a chiropractor. It's like, what did I just do? I just made an adjustment, and it's not always conscious, but I seem to you almost kind of just feel your way through it at sometimes,
Do you ever get to the point where you forgot what you were going to say, maybe even before you said it or in the middle of it, and like, holy crap, how does this end? Or do you ever have moments like where you sort of, where am I going with this?
Oh yeah, I've had that before. And sometimes I'll just break down and say, hey, you guys, this is a new joke here. You're gonna have to, I'll make a joke about the joke. Or, let's say you're in Vegas and you're doing shows you're doing 2 shows a night for 7 days. After that 4th or 5th night, you're like, did I already do this joke? Because you did it in the first show and the previous other nights. And so now you start thinking you're repeating. That can be a little bit unsettling. Yeah.
Out of control people in a club or on a cruise ship, I mean, hecklers, is that much of an issue? And do you know what to do to silence them? Or is that always a problem?
No, I mean, I haven't had too much problem with hecklers. Early on in my career, but I think people sensed a little bit of fear in me, and then they, like, this guy is somewhat timid, and let's poke at him. You get these guys after, I was heckling you. I was just trying to help you out. I said, well, I didn't post a Craigslist ad. Thanks anyway.
Well, you kind of look like a guy not to mess with. I mean, you kind of like on the surface I think maybe they're even afraid of you. Is that possible?
I have a physical presence and a look that people aren't feeling that, oh, this is a guy we can come and kind of mess with. But I always look at hecklers. There's different types of hecklers. There's the friendly heckler that maybe had a couple too many drinks, or super exuberant. Then you get these people. I think they're locked in a cabin, and their significant other finally lets them out. And they
I think you're yeah.
They think, and they think that you're doing such a good job personalizing it. I don't know if it's such a good job or they're just interpreting it that they think the show is all about you and them, that we're having a conversation. So the goal for comedians is to have, it's very conversational, and you and the audience are having basically a one-way dialogue. But some people interpret that as an opportunity to participate. So I try to be, pretty even-handed and get them back down with the force that they throw at me. you know, if you have someone that pipes up and you smash them down, and you just look like a bully. And then if you come back too timid and you don't give equal response, then you look like a wimp. So I like the challenge, but at the same time, it's like, hey, let's just do my act, and we don't need to have a wrestling match with the audience.
We're chatting with Marc Yaffee, comedian. Let's take another look and listen of his work.
My parents just celebrated their 65th wedding anniversary. 65 years, yes. They've been married so long, their marriage now qualifies for Social Security. Yeah, their two favorite hobbies, cleaning and driving slow, so we bought them a street sweeper. They're awesome. They're in great shape for their age, but you know, they're getting up there. My mom is 89, my dad is 91. So they spend a lot of time dealing with medical professionals, so much so we changed the voicemail on their answering machine. You call their house now, it's like, hi, I've reached the Yaffees. We can't come to the phone right now because we're on the phone with a doctor. On the way to a doctor, or at a doctor. If this is a doctor, please press 1. HMO, press 2. Medical lab test results, press 3. If this is at pharmacists from the local drugstore, please hang up. We found cheaper prescriptions in Canada.
So is there any subjects you will not touch in the back of your head where you just kind of steer away from?
Well, you know what? I don't do too much religion. I do minimal politics, especially when I'm on the cruise ships, because politics can be, you know, it's a 50-50 country, as the way I look at it, you know. Probably not exactly, but yeah, if I do, I'm going to try to kind of poke at all sides. But I don't. Yeah, I mean, I'm not really dirty comic. I don't cuss a lot. Once in a while, I mean, I might drop an F-bomb, but that's very rare if it kind of pushes a joke along, an emphasis. But no, I don't think there's any no-go topics, to be honest. But I think that's not that I would. It's just my brain doesn't go there. Not that I'm consciously avoiding it.
Right. Well, what is your political views, thoughts about where we're at with this country, where we're headed? What? Any insight on it as a comedian and as a voter?
I don't know if I can make it humorous. I don't know. It's such a divided situation, and you know, everyone thinks, oh, it must be great. You have President Trump in the White House, and you must have all sorts of materials. You know, at the end of the day, it's like people are sick of politics, so they don't want to hear it. My feeling is, I think the Democrats are really getting out to a bad start as far as the primary season and the way these debates are going now. When you have everyone, you know, I was Republican for many years. I voted both sides of the aisle. My friend called me a rainbow Republican, was his line for years, because, you know, I tend to be pretty moderate. And I said, well, I just didn't care for Trump from day one. I didn't like him back when he was running around New York, you know, bragging, you know, not humble bragging, just bragging all the time. So I was really hopeful we would get two better candidates than Hillary and Trump. You know, I said I felt like the choice was between projectile vomiting and explosive diarrhea. It's like it was descriptive, and projectile vomiting won. Yeah. So,
yeah, I think you're right on that. I wonder, like, do you think we can, no matter who becomes the next two presidents down the road, how do we switch out of this, like, sort of abrasive? I mean, have we now opened the door where, in order to win, you've got to be abrasive, you've got to be over the top, you've got to just cut your opponent down? I mean, how will we switch that back? Or now is this just all entertainment for all of us, I wonder?
I think it is all entertainment. You know, it's fun and games. So maybe we get to the point where there's, you know, this serious situation in the country where, you know, a calamity, and we say, hey, we got to stop. And, you know, the equivalent of a World War II. Now, I don't think Franklin Roosevelt and his opponents back then were clowning at each other, but we've had yellow journalism and hyperbolic politicians. We had populists, you know, was that Williams Jennings Bryan back in the 1800s. So this isn't the first go round we've had with this kind of behavior. But what we have now is the social media and the ability for it to just get out of control so quick.
Yeah. No,
I think my answer, people wouldn't like. I'd say number one would be voter IQ laws, where you have to maybe pass like a 3-question test. Who's your congressperson? Can you name 2 people in the cabinet? And it can't be Jack Daniels or Jim Beam. You know, and just have some basic understanding. I think we have to realize that, you know, we have to take the vote more seriously. I know people, friends of mine, and that they'll just vote and say, I don't read the ballot. I just vote no on everything. I just vote straight party line. It's like, well, we're overwhelmed with complex problems. We want the politicians to solve them, but then we get mad at politicians who we elected. You know, it's a no-win situation. I don't even know why people would want to go into politics, to be honest.
Yeah, it is. To me, what's weird about politics, both Democrats, Republicans, where I think both parties sort of fail, I don't know why people can't just look at the issues and go, say you're going to vote Republican, you're not going to get, that leader is not going to, he's not going to, or she's not going to have 10 out of 10 things that you like. I look at it as if you can get 6 out of 10 that you like from that person, you're doing good. Same thing if you're going to vote for a Democrat. This notion that a party has to appeal to all the things that you feel are correct just doesn't work. You really got to look by the issues. And like I said, you're not going to win with all the issues. It's not going to happen. Well,
that's why more people are going independent. I think that's what's going to change the country. Is people say, I'm not going to vote. You know, the Democrat platform I don't feel those 6 out of 10 issues. The Republican platform, I don't feel 5 or 6, 10 out of the issues. I'm gonna be a free agent, and I'm gonna vote my conscience at the time when it comes up, and stop being a straight partisan. So maybe that's going to be the answer, and people are going to start to think about what's really going on. But in the short term, I think I think it's like a fever. We're going to have to sweat it out, and hopefully we can survive this. You know, again, my issue is like, hey, well, you know, if we're not going to believe scientists and economists and experts, whether you agree with the messenger, the media, or whoever's putting out there, then we got a problem. We can disagree on opinions, but we got to get to a common ground on facts, or we're done.
Well, it is weird with, like, when you say, like, somebody won't agree and with a scientist, but I guarantee you they would, when they have cancer, they're going to believe what the scientist tells them, right?
Well, yeah, people are like, well, can't you know, climate change. Well, how are they going to do these projections and say, 50 years from now? Well, hey, they tell you in 2 weeks there's going to be a Category 4 hurricane. That gets your attention, and they may not be exactly a category. It might end up being a 2 or 3.
Right, but you believe that scientist.
I think we need to go back, trusting some of the experts. We got to realize we're not all experts, even though we might have access to a lot of information. We can't be the ones that are dictating the outcome of how the information is best processed. I mean, I think Facebook is the best place to discuss science.
Yeah, I don't know, and I also feel like people just really, 2 things. I feel like they really don't know the issues. They don't know their own, how civics even works anymore. I just think people really are reading a headline on Facebook and then they're swiping to the next thing. I don't believe many people are even sitting there reading. When people say, how do you get your news? Oh, I get it on the internet. To me, when I hear that, I know what that means. You're not reading the news. You're not reading stories. You are not,
And I'm guilty of that. I go right to Yahoo News. I read 30 seconds of the story. A lot of times I go right to the comments because I like to see how people are reacting, and that we've all become reactive instead of basically contemplative.
Yeah.
So we're not thinking about, okay, let me just not rush to a decision. Let me think about this, digest it, maybe read a couple of different takes on it. That's why I like I think podcasts, like what we're doing here. This is a good thing. I think people are saying, okay, I'm going to sit there and focus on one show for half an hour, 45 minutes.
Right.
And say, hey, there's other positions. The other side's not irrational. There's people that are in the middle that like some elements of what people on both sides of the aisle are saying. And it's not all just blue team versus red team or, or left against right. There's 325 million different opinions on what's in this country.
Yeah, and I always feel like people like you, comedy is actually things that can change these things, believe it or not. I believe the comedians that stand up there and talk, I think George Carlin was brilliant at that kind of stuff. And I think there's a lot of guys out there and women who are very good at talking about politics. And I think it makes us think about politics in an easier way. When I watch things like Seth Meyers, A Closer Look, he does that segment, which I think is brilliant. The Daily Show, I think is maybe the way to get people to look at issues that they normally would not even think of. Any thoughts on that?
Oh, I agree, absolutely. I think the key is you have to get a diversity of influences. If you're just getting one or two people and you've already made up your mind, these other people have nothing of value to say, then we're in big trouble. So people need, just keep an open mind, hold to your values, but don't be stuck in your opinions. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. It is weird. I have so many friends like this and acquaintances. People, man, they will not. I have friends that will just watch Fox News and they will not watch anything else. And then I have friends that will just watch CNN, MSNBC, and they would never turn on another news station. I find that so weird. I find it so strange that you're not even curious what that other side is saying, I
agree, absolutely. And, people would just listen and say, hey, these people on the other side have some valid grievances. You have to look at the position where they're coming from. Some voter in Livonia, Ohio, that's been working at a factory for 40 years and has a kid that's maybe, suffering from some drug addiction, has way different opinions and struggles than someone living in San Francisco that has $2 million in tech stocks. We're not a homogeneous country. We got so many different layers. We've got to start thinking about, hey, you can't expect everyone to think like you. Where do we meet? Where do we meet in the middle? Where are the best ideas? We're the idea country of the best in history. Where are we going to bring back the experts? That's what I thought President Trump at least said, I'm going to bring in the best and the experts. And I don't really see that he gathered those folks around him. I think that was a bit of the sell that he passed off on us. So.
A lot of family members. A lot of family members working for him.
Jared put out a nice little pamphlet on peace in the Middle East.
There you go.
It looked like a Mar-a-Lago condominium sales brochure. I saw that online. I'm like, well, I don't know if this is the guy that's going to bring peace to the Middle East. We need to have peace in America first. And the other thing is, people, stop expending a lot of energy trying to convert people on Facebook. Like I get guilty of that too. We put out a meme or a post and I'm gonna talk my friends into, they're gonna see this, and no one's switching teams. You're not going to get a liberal to support the border wall. You're not going to get a hardcore Trump supporter to go for Medicare for all. You get a better chance of a Jehovah's Witness converting a convent full of nuns than you get for someone to change teams on Facebook, right?
Yeah, I think you're just looking for affirmation or something of your own views. When people start doing that, they're just trying to, pat themselves on the back that they know something. So I totally agree.
There should be a mandatory exchange program. Everyone has to go live. A blue state person has to go live in a red state for 6 months, and vice versa. See how the other half's living. Maybe that Paris Hilton show wasn't so bad.
Well, you know what? I think it would be a great idea when everyone graduates from high school. They've got to go service a year of some sort of voluntary work, whatever, either in this country or somewhere else. You could even apply it that year goes towards college.
Peace Corps, military, Vista in the United States.
Whatever it might be, I just think that would change everyone's view on everything. If you just had to go see how other people live and you had to contribute to that, I think that would change everyone in a big way, and it would be great for the country.
But you'd have to leave your area too. You'd be sent to like a state, at least 5 states away. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
Any view on drugs being legal now? Any thoughts? Any?
Well, I don't smoke weed. I'm not really a drug user, but I think decriminalization is probably where we're headed. And hopefully, my concern, I don't want to sound like an old, anti-drug person. My concern is just, potency. Everyone's trying to outdo themselves with, the different strains of weed and different CBD. So hopefully it's regulated enough where, it doesn't adversely affect the people that will be adversely affected by a drug, whether it's legal or illegal. We know some people can handle alcohol and some people can't. Most people can handle weed, and some people just get caught up in it, So as far as the tax panacea, if we just tax it, and we're not going to smoke enough weed or sell enough CBD, THC to buy our way out of fiscal problems. But at the end of the day, we have to have justice reform and prison reform, and a lot of those guys that are in prison are, lower level drug offenders that really shouldn't be there.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. Pot was never a thing for me. When I smoked it, the paranoia was so horrible. I mean, I couldn't stand to be with myself. That I just can't even understand why to use it. But I feel the same way. It's why are we locking people up if they want to do this in the privacy of their home? And as long as you're not getting in your car or going to work or whatever it might be, why do we care? I mean, who cares?
No, I agree. If you're sober on the road, you're not high or whatever, stay home, get high, watch TV all night, eat Cheetos. Yeah.
So let's wrap it up with what's the future of comedy? Where's the world of comedy going?
Well, like you said, I think it's in a big upswing right now from an audience performance standpoint. They got this new show coming out, Bring the Funny on NBC. We got a lot of comedy podcasts. Hopefully, like I said, we're bordering on oversaturation, but I think that the niche is there. People want it. We're vital now in the fact that people want an escape from, just the stress of life. We're still bringing people some laughter. Hopefully, we're not going to be the victims of our own success and oversaturate the market, but. I'm just going to keep trying to find my niche. I'm working on a new hour special. I hope it'll be pretty political, more political than I've ever done. But I want it to be where it's, still has some humanity in it. Where I'm not going to be too partisan, but I'll get people to say, hey, we like we said, we need to step back, slow down, and open our ears and listen to people. So hopefully, comedy can keep bringing that vibe to entertainment. And I keep getting paid because I certainly don't want to get a day job.
Marc Yaffee, you're going to do well, man. You just keep plugging away. You're a talented guy. I think people should look out for you, and you're going to do real well.
Well, I did want to make a quick plug. I will be in Florida in November. I don't get to Florida too often except on the ships. I'm doing Gregory's Comedy Club in Cocoa Beach, I think the week of November 14th. So if you're in the area, feel free to come out. My website is laughwithmarc.com, LAUGHWITHMARC. And feel free to look me up and friend me on Facebook. We'll have some laughs. I share some videos and hopefully bring some good medicine, because I think laughter at the end of the day, it's healing medicine.
Marc, we're out of here.
Thanks a lot.